Now, there are 1,800 children now in mandatory detention. We're told some are living in horrible, isolated conditions. Would a coalition government release them?
Well, if they're released into the community on the bridging visa policy, they'll be potentially living in quite deplorable conditions in the community, as we already know single adult males are. In the recent Senate estimates hearing, we drilled into this issue and we asked, are children better off in held detention than they would potentially be if they were released under the no care, no responsibility plan of the government? And we couldn't get the assurances of their safety, of the support that's provided, particularly the medical care and support. Now, I think that's an issue the government would have to address before they just dump children and families into the community. The best place for them to be is community detention. And what Minister Burke wouldn't tell you is that they've run out of places for community detention.
Do you mind if I interrupt you on this point? Are you saying that unaccompanied minors would be better off in detention than in some kind of community care, perhaps a foster arrangement?
What I'm telling you is that's what the Department of Immigration told us during the Senate estimates hearing when we were trying to get the answers to this very issue. Well, you must raise that with the Department of Immigration, because the bridging visa policy... Now, let's understand, there are a couple of options here for the government. Now, let me finish the answer, Emma. There are a couple of options here. There's community detention, and that is the best situation in which families and children should be placed. But the government has run out of places because of the record number of children.
I'm specifically curious about unaccompanied minors.
I know, Emma, and I'm trying to answer your question. So if you'd let me answer it, I'll give you an answer.
I think the Australian community would want to know also. Children without parents,
what I'm trying to answer,
what
Emma.
happens to them? We know there are 300 at the moment in Tasmania at Pontville, and there is a general curiosity around why these children are being locked up.
Well, because I think at the moment the government is not in a position to place them in a situation where appropriate care can be provided. Now, if the government can do that in the sort of community detention arrangements that are available for families, then that is not something I have an objection to. But if they can't provide that level of care out in the community, then one has to question whether that is the wise decision. Now, the fact that the government can't put those accommodation arrangements in place into the community, I think, is the real issue here. Why can't they do that? Because just too many people have turned up and the system is completely overwhelmed. These are the consequences of what Kevin Rudd did almost 6 years ago. When you abolish those policies, when you roll out the Rudd carpet to people smugglers, this is what happens.
Would you seek to change that, to find suitable arrangements, suitable care situations for children?
Well, of course I would. Of course I would. And the difficulty we would face if we were elected, Emma, is that there will be around 30,000 people in the system. Now, as you know, they only just started processing people post-August 14 arrivals last Monday. And the Minister's response last night as the explanation of that was completely unacceptable. There is no valid reason why they just allowed people to sit on the end of a queue for all that period of time and allow the system to back up. That's created more problems than it's solved. And if we're elected, we are going to be facing an enormous backlog in this area, and that's going to create a real strain, and I think it's going to put people at risk.
Finally, Kevin Rudd last night